Hey guys, today we're tackling the issue of parenting a transgender child. The reality is this, in the adoption and foster community, there's a significant shortage of families who are open to parenting a transgender child. An even harsher reality than that is the significant number of biological families who abandon, shame, or shun their biological children for being transgender. Those realities manifest in a really sobering statistic, being that the suicide rate of transgenders is shockingly around 50%. So today we're going to speak with Sue Piercy. She's the Director of Quality and Supervisor of the Special Education Advocacy Program at the ARC, and she's also a parent of a transgender child, so check it out. So what does it mean to be transgender? Some people think it's just confusion. Some people think it's a phase. And some people think it's extreme drag. But what exactly does it mean?
You've probably met transgender people before, you just didn't know.
According to UCLA Williams Institute, 1.4 million adults identify as transgender.
First, can you just give a little intro of you, your family, what you want to share?
All right, I have 3 kids. Actually, they're not really kids anymore, but I have a son, Anderson, who's 20. I have a daughter, Kendall, who is 18, and I have a daughter, Mia, who is 15. And Anderson is my son who is transgender. Biologically, he was female, and he is now transitioning to being male. He was born and we named him Brooke, and thought he was a female. And as time went on, we came to understanding that he was pretty much born in the wrong body, and he identifies as male.
So can you talk about how that came to be? I mean, I know him and realized at a young age that maybe Brooke was a tomboy.
A lot of the questions I get from parents is, when did you know? And the honest answer is, with the transgender, I didn't know until he told me. To give you a little bit of a timeline, obviously, from the very early age, I knew that Brooke was a tomboy. I mean, there was no doubt about it.
Okay.
About what age was that? I don't want to interrupt you, but you said at an early age. Do you remember about what age?
When I noticed she was a tomboy, it was about right around 5.
According to the Mayo Clinic, most children identify their own gender by the age of 3. By age 5 or 6, children become very rigid about their gender identification, despite their physical body parts.
Then she came to me and told me, it was the summer of the spring of 7th grade. So she's about 11 at this time. And she comes up to me and she says, "I need to talk to you about something." And I'm like, "Now?" Because I was in the middle of filing something. And she said, "Yeah, Mom." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "I like girls, like I want a girlfriend." And I said, "Oh." And I was like, "Well, all right." And I said, and what went through my head first, and this is one of those things you don't like to admit out loud, but the first thing that went through my head was, how do you even know? Okay. So, because I'm thinking 11 years old, you don't even know who you like. But I had a lot of gay friends growing up. And one of the things that one of them had said to me was, people always ask you, how do you know if you're gay? But nobody ever asks you, how do you know if you're straight? And so I was like, oh, so I can't really say, how do you know if you like girls, when I've never asked the other two, how do you know you like boys?
Right.
And so that kind of stuck out in my head. And I was like, okay. And then she told me, this was the biggest surprise of that night, that she told me I already told my friends. And I went, oh my gosh, what? With this generation, honestly, it's so fluid. You can look at someone, you have no idea what, and it's so much different than we were growing up. They're so open about it. But that's the main gist of it. That's how, like, the main question I get from parents is, when did you know? I didn't, and so, which is, it's a little shocking. So, one of the things that that no one really thinks about is transgender is not about sexuality. When you're talking, I'm a lesbian, I'm bisexual, I'm gay, that all means who you're attracted to. When you're talking transgender, that's who you are.
Okay, I don't get. So you're like a lesbian?
This isn't about who I want to go to bed with. It's about who I want to go to bed as.
Okay. So, 9th grade, we were driving down the street, and she asked me, can you pull over? And I pulled into this gas station. I'll never forget this day as long as I live. And I pulled in a gas station, and she said, I need to tell you something else. I'm like, oh dear God, what now? You know what I mean? And and she said, I'm transgender. That blew my mind. I've been very honest with him this whole time. That blew my mind. And I was like, and so I looked at him and I said, okay, I need to educate myself before I react to this. I had big images in my mind, like, what does that mean? What, what's going to happen next? Mm-hmm. Because in my mind, transgender did not look like how Anderson looks today. Okay. And because I think that's a media thing. They make the transgender people presented on the media are not like, they're not typical of transgender individuals. When you guys think back to anything you saw on TV or in movies about people that are transgender, it's pretty much always drag queens. It's always like this, like, really out there kind of behavior. And, and so that's kind of like what made me think about Anderson. I'm like, what do I expect here? Like, what will this look like?
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and...
Dennis Bryson and I worked together in Oakland. He's one of the finest minds in the DEA. Harry, we're in very good hands. Coop. Dennis?
It's a long story, but actually I prefer Denise, if you don't mind.
Pardon me. I hate to use a corny line like this, but haven't I seen you before?
You like football?
Oh, yeah, I used to watch it quite a bit.
Well, you might have seen me. I was a tight end with the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 90, Robert Muldoon.
Oh, yeah.
I had a great pair of hands.
Yes, you did.
It is awesome that your first reaction was, I need some time to educate myself.
And I was horrified at my reaction. In my head, I was like, I don't want to have the reaction that I'm thinking and feeling right now. So it was more like what does that actually even mean? Like, does that mean he wants to dress like a guy? Does that mean, does that mean everything? And I did do that. Is it a phase kind of thing? And then I thought to myself, nobody's going to go around telling people they're transgender as a phase. If that's not a phase. People say, oh, it's a choice. I'm like, who chooses this? Who chooses this struggle? Same thing with disabilities. Who chooses? These are challenges that people face. No one chooses them. If anybody could choose anything, they'd choose the perfect life, the easy way. It's not easy what he's gone through, and he has been very successful in it. I lost so many more friends than I ever thought I would. And it's amazing to me because I lost friends. He kept all his friends. You have a question?
You lost friends because you had a transgender child.
Yes. Yes, because I was
and
supporting
you
them.
lost those friends because you were supportive of
Yes.
the transgender child, and had you not been supportive, had you I guess
Shunned or
had you shunned your child, you would have retained the friend. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, basically what they said was, I can't support you in, in this. You should be taking your kid to therapy. There's something wrong with your kid. Do you think this is because of your divorce? Maybe if Anderson had spent more time with his dad, he wouldn't have, be so screwed up. First of all, being a lesbian, that kind of tells you that he's not really attracted to men anyway. So it was like there was a whole process to this. And it was almost like a lot of my friends were like, okay with the sexuality part. It was the gender part they had an issue with. And I'm like, what? And I felt like they were judging my parenting. Like I felt like they were saying, oh, well, if you would have been a better mom, you wouldn't be here. Or maybe if you had learned to get along with your ex-husband better, then maybe your kid wouldn't be that way. And I'm like, the insanity, and I'm not going to say, what type of people they are, but there's a political edge to it. And, I've been called crazy liberal. I'm actually not really that liberal. I consider myself a conservative Democrat, which I don't even know if
nothing
that's
to
a
do with
category.
politics. That kind of thing is crazy. This is your child, and we know your child, and I can tell you that Anderson is one of the most genuine people on the planet, and
he really is.
He really is. And so you've done an amazing job.
Well, thank you.
And you need to know that and remind yourself of that these people clearly are not friends.
I expected it from people my parents' age. I really did. I didn't get it from them. I didn't get it from any of our family. I got it from people our age.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit? You mentioned the depression and the suicide rates. I think that is an important message to get out to people.
One of the things that I noticed early about Anderson was the emergency phone calls in the middle of the night. He would wake me up and he said, Mom, I need to go to so-and-so's house. It's an emergency. And it was kind of like an understanding that someone was in trouble. These kids with technology, they are always connected. It's for good or for evil. They are always connected. And so usually when he would ask me that would mean that someone had come out to their parents and it didn't go well, that somebody needed them to sit through the night. And it's interesting about this depression and suicide rate. It wasn't until he was educating me that I realized how bad it was.
According to recent studies, half of all those who identify as transgender will have at least one suicide attempt.
So, what I ended up doing was I went to this Facebook group called Serendipity Doodah, home of the mama bear. And so I was like, what is this thing? When I started reading about it, and it was all moms, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, anything, but like they wanted you to, it was very strict rules. Okay. So I go on this, I get accepted into this group. It takes a couple days and I'm watching all of these postings, and I did not realize the suicide rate. I didn't realize the hospitalizations that happen. And one of the things I asked Anderson, I said, I'm reading about these people, and all these people are so, like, their kids are going through these depressions and suicide rate is so high. And I looked at Anderson, I go, did you go through that? And this is going to make me cry. And he said, no, I had you. And so and then it made me realize how many kids out there don't have someone. And this is why I'm doing this with you guys, because the foster care system and adoption, they have no idea how many parents are needed, how many homes are needed, how many people lose that structure and that home life and the people that they love and the people that are supposed to love them unconditionally. It's amazing to me. And I've always told Anderson, if that person doesn't have a home, they have a home here. And sorry, you probably can't even understand my voice right now. But because it always shocked me that people would be like, it's so important to me that you be who I thought you were going to be when you grew up. And to, basically make that decision. Or even people, there's a lot of these moms on there that don't have supportive families, that have cut off all ties with their entire family, have divorced people, have, completely cut them out of their lives. We all know, and the number one thing that helps kids with mental health is having one supporting adult. That's it. Have one adult that says, I got your back no matter what.
Suicide is not that someone does not want to live. It's that they don't want to live with their current situation. Studies show that the risk to kids contemplating suicide drops exponentially if they have at least one adult that they can turn to for support. It only takes one.
It's not always a happy thing for a lot of parents. Like, it's a very happy time for a lot of people that are coming out, but the parents, a lot of their worlds were totally rocked by this information. This is a shocking thing. You go through a grieving period too, and kind of like, people with kids with disabilities, there's a grieving period. What you thought isn't anymore. Does that mean anything's going to be bad? No, but it is different. And you go through a lot of challenges. I remember crying and thinking, I've got no business crying. My life is not hard. I need to be the support for him. But I also gave myself it's okay to cry every once in a while. This is the part that hurts me. I'm not part of that community. And sometimes I feel like, there should be a part for me too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, everybody supports everybody that's gay or transgender and everything. But what about the parents? The parents need support too, because, their world's a lot different too.
Right.
So, sometimes some days I do feel sorry for myself. Sometimes I do. And sometimes I think, oh my gosh, can you imagine if you tried to stay Brooke? The name was an issue. And I told him, I said, the one thing about being your mom was I got to pick your name at least. Like, and so, and that was a weird thing that I'm like, why is this even affecting me? But it was. And I'm like, I don't have any choice in any of this. I want choice. I want choice in this. And so I gave him a list of names, and he actually picked the name Anderson out of my list. I honestly think that some of my family members have struggled way more than I have. And I find that fascinating, because I'm like, if I'm okay, why are you not?
Right.
So that's a little tough for me.
How about Kendall and Mia? How did they handle?
With Kendall and Mia, I told them, if anybody ever says anything, if anybody bullies you, I need to know immediately. And they're like, yeah, everybody loves them. It's not really a thing. And I attribute that to social media and the way those kids are way more accepting of each other than any of us. I mean, it's horrible. Like, some of the things that they've seen and gone through, in the last year or so have been awful. But they get it. They know what it's like to not feel accepted and to accept more people. I mean, there really hasn't been any issue at all. Being Anderson, I'm sure he's saving me from some of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, he knows that I wouldn't just be able to let it go. It would be a worry. So I don't know how much he hasn't just told me. So,
well, I'm sure he doesn't want to see you end up in prison.
Well, it's funny because
I know your demeanor.
Yeah, you've heard me.
So at any point after, Brooke revealed to you at 14 years old that, right? It was 14. Was there a point as a parent that you thought to yourself that, yeah, I'm okay with this, but I really want to try to do something to prevent my child from going down this path because of you could forecast what she had ahead of her at that point by trying to be transgender, kind of like my generation. It was when people were gay and came out. parents
Right.
would say things like, well, I don't mind that my child is gay, but I don't want them to be gay because I know how hard that's going to be for them. Was there any bit of that went through your head?
No, you know what? I don't think there was. It was more, I think I was kind of not numb. I think I was more kind of like stunned. That's the word. I was stunned and shocked. And so I think that shocked feeling didn't make me, I knew there was nothing that I was going to say or do, or, because I know it's not a change thing. It was more like I'm shocked, and it's taking me a little while to accept it. But you know what, honestly, when it hit me that there was like, this wasn't a phase, or this wasn't, there was no going back.
Mm-hmm.
When Brooke cut her hair, cut his hair, when Anderson cut his hair, he walked in and I went, there's my kid. It was the most unbelievable moment where I was like, I have never seen my kid before this moment. And it was like, there's his face. That's who he is. And I guess maybe like when people say, would you have it any different? What if you were, yeah, of course I would. I would have had him be born a boy because his life has been challenging. However, do I think he helps a million other people because he has gone through those challenges? Absolutely.
All right, guys, that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. Actually, that interview was a few hours long, and we just had to cut a whole bunch out of it. So I apologize again for the quality of the video. It was done over Zoom meeting and cell phone, so because of COVID. So the quality wasn't very good, but there was a lot of information in there, and I hope you got a lot out of it. I know that I learned a lot, and make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're going to be following up with Anderson in a couple of weeks here, so you'll get to see that video as well and get his perspective on being transgender as a follow-up to this. So if you hit the subscribe button, you'll get notifications when we post that video, and you'll get to see that as well. So take care.